place existed. The Athenians called it the Acropolis. Free expression, ethics, art, philosophy. The Acropolis heralded the democracy. But if I told you the Acropolis has returned. Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.
Dr.Evil, aka Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, needs to understand a few things. My name is Trevor Brown, and you're watching The Trevor Report. This segment of The Trevor Report is sponsored by NordVPN. Click the affiliate link down below in the description in order to experience all of NordVPN's wide-ranging offers that help protect you and your internet privacy at an affordable price. Alright, so before I get started, I just wanted to kind of plug this premium article over on theacropolisnews.com, and the reason for this is because this is a really good article. I break down sort of, I do a virtue ethic analysis of time travel as a concept, which, dedicated some time to it. I hope you might enjoy it. But the things I'm going to be bringing up in here about like the value and importance of aesthetics is going to be important for later on in this segment. So I thought I just continue. Anyway, so there's this. So in West Virginia, there was a shooting that was stopped by a good woman with a gun, right? The good guy with a gun, right? But anyway, what she did was she, like, literally days after the shooting in Texas, she saved lives. But there is a reason why the corporate press wouldn't run with this. And by the way, I do I do make that distinction between the corporate press, like CNN, MSNBC, Vox, Huffington Post, New York Times, The Guardian, right? And the mainstream media, because those institutions are also the mainstream media. But Fox News has some, I guess, populist sentiments, so they don't just chug along with the cathedral, as it were. But just read this if you want, But there's also I can't believe this. This segment is just about like the greater cultural decline of the United States at like just in general, right? Don't be ashamed. You are using. Be empowered that you are using safely. What is fentanyl? Fentanyl is a powerful opioid that can be found in heroin, cocaine, crack, methamphetamine, ketamine, and pressed pills. Why is it dangerous? Fentanyl increases the risk of overdose, especially among people who do not regularly use opioids. Prevent overdose. Avoid using alone and take turns. You and all your drug-addicted buddies can safely ruin the lives and the personal connections with those around you. Just girl power. And because the show's now on Spotify as well, for those who are listening, it's a photo telling people how to use illicit substances safely, like how to manage a debilitating addiction safely, which you could also just minimize the amount of debilitating addictions that ruin people's lives, but whatever, fine. That's just old-fashioned thinking that you should not be addicted to drugs. Start with a small dose and go slowly. Have naloxone on hand. Avoid mixing drugs. Test your drugs using fentanyl test strips. How about don't have a debilitating addiction to an illicit substance? And I guess more broadly with culture in decline, when you're seeing this or listening to this, when it goes out, it's going to go out in the morning, 7 a.m. on June 1st, which means it is officially Homo Ramadan. All the current thing people are going to have the pride flag with the separate but equal racial pride stripes in their bio because, progressivism is eugenics and segregation. Look it up. Anyway, new Biden administration will tie federal education funding to LGBT mandates. An upcoming Biden administration rule will tie billions of dollars in federal education funding to an array of LGBT policies, forcing school districts and universities to implement controversial rules on issues like transgender athletes in order to receive federal funding. Basically, if you don't oppress women, you're not going to receive money from the state, which means eventually the state will end up giving less money to people, which means they won't need to tax as much. I see this as an absolute win. But anyway, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said this month it will change how it represents Title IX prohibitions on discrimination based on sex to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Basically, it's going to include John Money's interpretation of humanity, of a concept that he completely made up and fabricated, and then on top of everything else, he's going to the Department of Agriculture is going to facilitate the sort of wider grooming culture from the sort of ethno-nationalist gender Puritan types. But anyway, the change means that schools that accept any kind of funding, including students receiving FAFSA or Pell Grants, or students who receive federally subsidized school lunch funding, will be subject to the new Title IX comprehension. Basically, if you're a victim of rape, and your rapist inserts her penis inside your vagina without your consent, if you refer to your rapist as a man because she has a penis, you're going to be punished because you didn't address your feudal lord rapist properly, which, yikes, big yikes. But we got to move on. We got to move on. I dedicated too much time to this, okay? Climate change is a thing. It's and people need to manage it. CO2, all that sort of stuff. I'm not a climate scientist. However, what I have noticed is a particular sway of anti-human just policy prescriptions when it comes to environmentalism more broadly. And to be honest, environmentalism is kind of a anti-human philosophy in a lot of ways. There's too many people being born. You got to reduce your carbon footprint. Well, as a human, I'm made of carbon, and you're trying to reduce me, and I know this full well, right? But this is one of the reasons, or I guess the main reason, for the gas crisis in the United States. Okay, and the Western world more broadly. And it's just going to get worse because when you have a Democrat in office, everything is expensive and not available, apparently. But here we are. Fuel shortages are going to be worse than they were during Jimmy Carter, who was also a Democrat. Okay, fine. But here's the thing. What a lot of people are saying is that we can use this opportunity to get people less dependent on oil. And fine. fine. If that's the way people want to go, fine. But what you need to do is you need to have environmentalists in particular. This could be, I guess, a conservative alternative to environmentalism. Would be to just say, hey, if this is happening, or if we believe this is happening, then why not manage this crisis in a way that is best suitable for humans, instead of the Greta Thunberg version of environmentalism, where you want to cut off all electricity in the West right now, which, by the way, would kill tens of millions of diabetics. It would be the It would be the worst. It would not only be the worst. It would be the biggest act of genocide in the entirety of human history. It'd be awful, right? So you cannot do that. You could also not have a fuel shortage in the United States by just having sensible policies that don't punish working class and middle class Americans for being in the wrong class. They should just be rich like everyone else. They should just buy a Tesla if they can't afford gas prices, as our betters have put it. But here's the thing. There's nuclear energy, and there are pros and cons of nuclear energy, okay? There is solar energy. There are pros and cons with it, just like how there are pros and cons with everything, okay? And there's also pros and cons with wind turbines and things like that. But the problem is, a lot of the wind turbines require fuel to get the thing spinning, okay? And and solar energy, well, if you're in most places on the planet, like if you're in Russia, the militarized snowy wasteland, you're probably not going to get a lot of sunlight throughout the year. If you're in Northern Europe or in South America, most parts, not most, in some places in the US and a lot of places in Canada, there's not a lot of places where it snows, where it's not cloudy all the time, okay? And I live in California, okay? And it's cloudy here a decent amount of the time, right? But what people mainly use solar panels for, okay, is they use it to reduce the cost for electricity, right? They put solar panels on the house to obfuscate the cost a little bit, to make their energy bills better fit their budget while maintaining their lifestyle. Solar energy on houses, okay, not big solar power factories, okay, which take up a huge amount of farmland and stuff, which is not pro-human, right? Solar energy being marketed to people to reduce the cost of people's energy bills, and also as a positive consequence, reduce a little bit of carbon emissions. Now, solar panels also they also have carbon emissions in producing them, and it's the same problem with Tesla batteries. Like, Tesla batteries are the most environmentally destructive things kind of ever, and it's a rare material too. But there are things like that. Okay, there's also nuclear energy, and nuclear energy. Let me get into the right. The pros is that it's very low cost. It is a reliable power source. There's zero carbon emissions, zero, with a nuclear power plant, right? It has a really high energy return, and the energy is high in density. I don't quite remember what that means, because, well, I only do one take with these Trevor reports, and my mind's drawing a blank right now. I apologize, but it's not renewable, so you gotta use the energy, which is fine. It requires some water. You got to build a nuclear power plant to buy a large body of water. What another thing you can do is you could just have a man-made lake by the power plant, and the American frontier has a lot of empty space, and there is some radioactive waste in an environment. Okay, that could cause an environmental impact, but that's the point of having a man-made lake to contain, that kind of thing. But there's also, sorry for hitting my mic, but there's also another thing you could do. You could take the existing carbon, the existing surplus CO2 in the air, and you can turn it into things which is good for humans. Okay, and Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, okay, Dr. Evil, okay, this is a solution. These are solutions to the climate crisis you care so much about. Okay, the solution is to find and exercise solutions to crises that are pro-human, okay? And turning the excess carbon dioxide in the air, CO2, into fuel to power things that humans use to make their lives better, and perhaps help the communities around them, or in even some cases, even in some cases, just be selfish and help themselves. Which, by the way, being like helping yourself, having ambition, that's not selfish. That's just being human. So, right? You could also turn the excess CO2 in the air into graphite, which is an alternative to steel. Like a green alternative to steel that can reduce the excess CO2 in the air. And people have been getting grants for this, and that's cool. That's great. There are all these solutions that you can do, and these solutions, okay, unlike Greta Thunberg's purposefully create the worst Holocaust in human history, or in Dr. Evil's case, everyone should stop eating cows, stop eating steak, and they should start eating bugs. Okay, now in the countries in the world that eat bugs, they eat bugs as a snack between meals, not as a meal. Okay, because if you wanted to eat bugs as a meal, you'd have to eat a lot of them. Okay, the same way that a bag of chips doesn't fill up a grown man like me. Okay, but 2 handfuls of bags of chips would fill me up. Okay, because it's not, and you could say, oh, it's high, oh, the bugs are this, the bugs are that, they're so good, they're so healthy for you, or whatever. Eat mealworms. Here, we are going to groom your kids to accept this alternative protein system because future generations will own nothing and be happy, and we'll all be orchestrated by us. Like, stop doing this. Okay, I'm going to, for you, Klaus Schwab, Dr. Evil, right? What I'm going to do is assume you're not Dr. Evil. I'm going to assume a man of your status, born in Ravensburg, Nazi Germany, okay? I'm going to assume, okay, just to be charitable, okay, not because I believe this, but just to be charitable, that you were a somewhat decent person, okay? And you, being a somewhat decent person, might possibly, inevitably, potentially end up watching this, okay? Pro-human solutions to the climate crisis that elevate people's standard of living instead of denigrating them. Then we can all get on the same page. Like, then we can all just get on the same page. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, moving on. Because I want to make this a quick Trevor report, as it were, right? Michael Sussman is acquitted because, corruption is corruption, and corruption is corruption. It was a DC jury, but basically, the court proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Michael Sussman did some very sus things, and I've already covered this before. All previous reports linked down below in the description. So even though the obvious corruption that obviously happened obviously occurred, here's the best part, okay? This is still a win. And I know what you're saying. How could this be a win? The corrupt man got away with doing the corrupt thing. Yeah, well, the thing is, more eyes are open now, and the more eyes are open, the more ears are I don't know. You get the point. Okay? I think in the long run, Sussman getting acquitted was a good thing. Okay? Because even the corporate press, okay, had to report the things that he said. Now, the people who consume the corporate press unironically and actively engage in the current thing because the current thing is current and very important because it's current. Well, they might not be convinced, okay? But I see more and more normal people, okay, just going, "What the hell is going on?" And you know what? Eventually, they'll piece it all together, and they'll be able to see all previous Trevor reports linked down below in the description, where they could see the entire because guess what? I have cataloged, okay, the past, let's see, political turmoil in the United States since February of 2021. Okay, some of my Trevor reports are a bit spicy, some of them aren't. But you know what? Just go check it out, and guess what? It's even available on Spotify. So anyway, in the meantime, my name is Trevor Brown, and you just watched the Trevor Report. Do click the Linktree that I was forced to make by myself down below in the description because Linktree banned my Linktree for opposing Black nationalism. So I made my new one down below in the description, and I just hit my mic again. Sorry about that. This video is sponsored by Acropolis News Network, the world's first fully independent media organization that is powered by Liberty platforms, peer-to-peer advertising, and cryptocurrency. On Acropolis News Network, we have a different standard of journalism. We allow anonymous reporting like Project Veritas. We also have a few anonymous reporters. Not going to say how many of them there are, and I'm not going to say who they are because they're, anonymous. But more importantly, if you subscribe to a membership subscription onto Acropolis News Network, not only will you get access to a ton of premium content that'll be coming out very soon, and a bunch of premium content that's already available on the site right now, you will also help fund our fully independent journalism and our academic contributions to society. If you do so, I would greatly appreciate it. You can also click the donate button over on any of the Acropolis News posts. I, as the chief editor, would greatly appreciate it because, well, it helps us stay independent, like I said, and that's part of our brand. And if you would like that to stay as a part of our brand, well, I would greatly appreciate it.
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.
All of you brilliant viewers out there, my name is Trevor Brown. I am the editor-in-chief of Acropolis News Network because I can give myself whatever name and title I want because I own it. You could go to theacropolisnews.com or you could go to ThisJustTrevor on whatever Liberty platform is your choice. Except for the ones I'm not on because I haven't seen them pretty much.
Acropolis News. News from the Acropolis.